Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. This is the Forum. Getting an echo. Not anymore. Thank you very much. Good morning, Dr. McCain.
Good morning, Pat. How are you doing this morning?
Good. You notice I said your last name correctly?
You are on it.
I have a scheme to fight dementia, and I use it, and it works for me. I'm going to tell it to you, tell it to everybody, see if it works for them. I have an anomia, all right? I have
Okay.
a problem with names, and I make associations. And once I make an association, I remember your name. The reason I remember your name was because of Bart McLean, who was a type B Western movie star. Not very good looking, one of the rough and tough bad guys. So McCain. So if I remember Bart, I remember your name. I know it sounds dumb. My first.
And then you have to switch from McLean to McCain. You might need a new association.
That's easy. The other one was hard. My first one was a neurologist in Port St. Lucie, and I was working with him through my agent's possibility. Come on. I don't know. He was watching TV, and I was in another room, and I think it was around 3. And he came running in the room and said, Daddy, there's a movie. We have to go see the movie. And I said, okay. I said, we'll look it up, and we'll find out where it's playing. And he smiled. He said, I know where it's playing. And I said, where? He said, at a theater near you.
They are little sponges. It's so amazing how fast they learn and pick up everything, good and bad.
But you have to be careful what you say around them, because you think They're not knowing you say a bad word, and they're playing with a toy and it falls apart and they say that bad word. Like, oh my God.
Actually, we had that problem yesterday.
My feeling is children are empty vessels.
They are.
And we as parents have a responsibility to fill them with all kinds of things, because if we don't fill them at home, they get filled out on the streets.
That's true. And right now, there are so many parents that are doing homeschooling and probably pulling their hairs out because we just can't appreciate enough the teachers that usually take our children throughout the whole school year. And it is difficult. Man, praise those teachers.
Amen to that. And I've been an educator for a long time. And, I used to teach the big kids. And it was tough enough with the college level students too. I had a friend that I said, why do you teach? He said, to fight back ignorance. And that's what he was doing at college. And you have to replace their thoughts with reality and with correctness. And I think once you do that, and it all starts in the home. I know you're a super busy woman. You're a phenomenal person. And I'm sure, are a phenomenal mother.
Oh, thanks.
And that's where we need to be. That's where we need to go. And your children later in life will thank you for that.
They're beautiful children now, and they're very well mannered. And I'm so fortunate to have children that know right from wrong, and even if they're only 4 years old. But I'll tell you, they definitely give me a run for my money as well.
It's a matter of sitting down and talking to them. And there was another thing too. I remember we were watching TV. My son was sitting on my lap, and I was on a recliner. And I started talking to him, and the television was on. And as I say everything, he kept looking at the TV. Finally, I said, turn around. He did. And I put my hands on his face, and I put his hands on my face. I said, now we'll look at each other and we'll talk to each other. Well, he got a thrill out of that. And one day, the same thing happened about a month later. And I looked at him and I said, Matt, hands. And he immediately wheeled around, looked right in my face. And we still do that today. And he's a grown man. If he's wandering, I just say, hey, hands. The other code word was stick. Because I asked him.
What does that mean?
I asked him to do something. We were in the living room. I said, go get what? Yeah, Dad. Dad was watching TV. I said, Matt, go get it. Yeah, Dad. I said, Matt, stick. And he turned to me and he said, what stick? I said, if you don't jump right now, I'm going to go outside and find the biggest stick I can find and beat you to death with it. Well, then he laughed. He went in the kitchen. And the same thing is true now. If he doesn't move, I say stick. And he laughs. The little code words and little cute things you develop with your children. And it's a moment that you can teach a lesson, and that lesson prevails.
Right. And there's lessons all around us.
How do you manage with your children right now with schooling and all of that stuff?
Well, my clinic has kind of turned into a summer camp / clinic. I have to come in every day still because I'm filling prescriptions and If we have patients that have acute needs, sick needs, we're
Right.
still seeing them. Actually, we're seeing them on our front porch, back porch, and things like that, trying to minimize exposure. But I have great staff too. Their kids are also out, so we kind of are tag teaming, a little bit of school, summer camp, a little bit of work as well. So we just make it work. You just have to make it work.
Oh, that's neat. That's neat. So they get to see mom a lot more these days. This is great.
I was telling my husband that today. I was like, it's sometimes really frustrating. At the end of the day, I didn't get all my work done, but I should be thankful about these moments I have with my young ones and really appreciate and take these moments. And I think it's just even the break at lunch where I get to see their face. It is really nice, actually.
Well, I think
It's a little stressful, but nice.
Yeah, but I think your parents will tell you in a flash, they're adults.
Yeah.
They grow up too fast. And all my memories, the heavy memories are preschool. The cute little things they did, what they said, the development. I watched them grow, and obviously the rest of their lives are important. But those were the foundation times for me as a parent, and I'm sure they're going to be for you as well.
We've talked about how I'm still pretty young in my medical career, but I can already appreciate, just Americans in general. We spend so much time with our work families, and we're coming home and we have just a few hours for dinner and talk and then bed and then repeat. Outside of the weekends, we spend more time with our work family than our own family sometimes. And it's been able to give me a step back and a perspective of what my goals are to make sure I maintain a good family unit and work and have a good work-life balance. It's hard for a lot of people to find that.
Well, what a beautiful segue into this topic for today about family needs and physicians.
Yes.
Open up a practice, schedule 45 people a day, go to the door, pull the chart, see the person's name, and walk in and say, Mrs. Smith, how are you today? And then sit down and start typing the results while we're in a conversation.
Right.
And that's, I'm not being overly critical. I'm being descriptive.
That's how I was trained.
Yeah, of course, pack them in because Medicare, and I can say this without seeing any of government officials in here right now coming after me. I think there's sort of like a little plot about Medicare. And let me tell you this little plot. All the officials, all the government people say Medicare is not going to be touched. We're going to have Medicare. Well, Medicare has been touched for the last 20 or 30 years because they keep reducing the rates, reimbursement rates.
Oh, certainly.
And there are physicians who say, okay, from now on, you pay me the $300 that I did the treatment for you. I will give you the bill. You submit it to Medicare. They say, okay. And they get the $65. And by cutting and cutting and cutting, it's driving these doctors away from this reimbursement system because they can't survive, nor can they be rewarded. And I think you need to be rewarded for what you've done up to this point. You've sacrificed 10 years of your life.
More. Even more. But it's absolutely true from both a patient perspective and a provider perspective. The healthcare model, it's not perfect. It's far from it. It's gotten into a bad factory style of medicine, of not necessarily medicine being poor, but the way that healthcare is being administered is like a poorly run factory. And so when people think, I'm so glad I'm finally hitting my Medicare years, I'm 65, I'll finally be covered. I hate to break it. A lot of people find out that it's not cracked up what it used to, what the expectations are, and they still have to pay for supplemental insurances.
Right.
It unfortunately, some people are just disillusioned about the benefit of it.
Well, then they say, well, let me go to a Medicare Advantage program, getting away from regular Medicare because they give me more things. Oh, they give me free hearing aids.
Which is a $4,000 value sometimes.
Yes, but you get $1,500 credit for one ear per year through the plan. And a hearing aid may cost $4,000 to $5,000. So you're not getting a free hearing aid; you're getting a coupon. And I'm not sure you have a choice to pick the best frame of glasses when you use the Medicare Advantage program to get your ophthalmological needs met.
Right. No, that kind of is a good segue because what we're going to be talking about today, if you won't mind me hijacking it, is
no, that's where I'm leading.
Yeah, exactly. There's a different healthcare model out there that kind of takes away the red tape, takes away the middleman, and allows those decisions to be made by the patient-doctor relationship. And that's direct primary care, which is our topic.
Okay. Now, is that anything like concierge
It's
Dr.
concierge without the sticker shock in a way, and maybe a little bit less. I don't know. The word concierge sometimes rubs people wrong, but what direct primary care is, and it's abbreviated DPC. It was a model that was coined 10 years ago by some physicians who decided that they're going to opt out of dealing with a middleman, and they're just going to contract directly with the patient for a membership. And the membership will include all the services that the clinic offers. So it's a monthly based membership, but it's very inclusive of the different services, and you're getting a lot more value being a member of a DPC clinic.
Okay, and this is good because many people, I would say the majority of the people out there don't know about this.
No. So actually, because of all the lobbying and the bureaucracy, DPC actually hasn't really been legal, and it's not legal in all 50 states yet, because insurance companies were trying to say that, oh, we're just providing insurance, and therefore it's an illegal operation if I'm trying to be an insurance agent. But a couple years ago, actually, Florida said that, nope, direct primary care doctors, it's just a membership like Netflix is a membership or a gym membership, and that we can be able to provide this quality level of care without, the regulations of being an insurance agent or being in the insurance industry. So it is very just, let me put a perspective in here, going back to your Medicare example and how complicated it is. There was just recently an update to the Medicare rules and regulations in January, and it was 2,700 pages long with the intent of, hey, we're simplifying it, right? But 2,700 pages long. And I'm going to be able to explain to you by the end of our phone call today, in my brochures, I can tell you what a DPC is in a trifold brochure, and it's just that simple.
See, wow. It's just amazing how can you write a bill with 6,000 pages and then say, well, we won't read it now. We'll read it later after we pass the bill. Excuse me.
True.
Excuse me. What kind of planet are you from? We're supposed to be in a field, unless you're a computer programmer and you're sitting in an office, not dealing with people at all during the daytime. You deal with people. You provide a service, no matter who you are, where you are, in almost any business in the world. You provide a service to an individual or to a group, and you get rewarded by getting paid or recognized or whatever. And I think that's where our mission lies. And you're hitting it right on the head. You're dealing with people's problems, and you're cutting through the red tape so you can deal more efficiently and more beneficially to these people.
Exactly. So what we've recognized is, why aren't people taking care of themselves? Why aren't they accessing doctors? Some of them even have insurance, and actually only 20% of the United States population actually meets their deductible every year. So 80% of people have insurance. Maybe they're using it, but they're actually not even hitting that goal that we're told we're supposed to be hitting every year. But people aren't going because healthcare in general is inconvenient, it's costly, and it's impersonal. And so what direct primary care has done is address those three issues through a membership model where my patients have, as far as inconvenience, they have access to me. So I'm text messaging, I'm sending emails out, we can do video chats. Even before COVID and telemedicine, we've been doing this. We had it perfected already. So after hours, if there's an urgent need, hey, we'll meet you back at the clinic if I have to sew your arm up. Well, my goal is to prevent you from going to the urgent care, and I want you to take care of your needs. Right. The fee-for-service healthcare model that exists currently does require you to come back in for a visit and back in for a visit, and you don't get paid for phone calls. And so, even though your labs are normal, I'm going to tell you, I can't tell you what your results are. You have to come in for a visit so we can tell you your results are normal. That's wrong. Right. I don't think that's a right way to hold patients hostage, but that's what physicians have to do in order to cover their overhead, because being in the fee-for-service model, when I was working at my last clinic where it was primary care, I had 10 employees working underneath me to make the day go by. I had one staff member designated just to deal with insurance companies for prior authorizations, which means I have someone who's not even a medical physician telling me if I'm making a good decision or not, or if they're going to approve a test or a lab or whatnot. And so having 10 staff members, that gets expensive. So the result is now I have to see 3,000 patients to cover that. Right. And when I say 3,000 patients, I'm saying patients. I'm not saying visits a year. Some people see the doctor once a year, twice a year, maybe 4 or 5 times a year. So that's how I end up with 45 people in my waiting room sometimes.
Right.
In the other model. So that it just is not as impersonal. When I have a direct primary care and you're part of a limited membership, maybe 500, 600 patients, and then each patient just gets more personal care, more time. I don't think I've had a visit yet in my office that was less than an hour. And we do phone calls, 30-minute phone calls here and there. Hey, I just want to check up. How are you doing? We started a med. I want to make sure you're not having side effects. I think the day I opened, a patient who had pre-enrolled and was on our wait list broke her foot. So the day I opened, I'm at her house trying to figure out where we can get her an Amazon boot the next day so she can be covered, and how to get her set up with an orthopedic. So we walk through people the complicated steps of healthcare because we have more time to do so.
Right. Well, how do you? Let's use that example: the fractured ankle, whatever foot, and you need an orthopedic physician. How does the payment work with one of your patients to go to another doctor?
Yeah. So just to kind of take a step back, it's how do I get paid? Let's say that and when I say membership, I just want to explain. So, like, for example, our membership is based on age, so it's different tiers. So if you're under 20, it's $49 a month. Between 20 to 40, $89 a month, 40 to 60, $109, and then above 60, $129. And I can tell you what's included in that afterwards. But primary care, when we have the time to actually treat a patient, can deal with 80 to 90% of medical issues. It's just in fee-for-service, we tend to refer because we don't have time to actually address it. We don't have time to hear the full story and actually tease out what it could be or what it couldn't be. And there's a lot of procedures as a family practice physician that I'm trained to do that I can't schedule for or have the means to do so in a fast-paced clinic. So first is that sometimes we're not going to be referring out as often as other clinics, and I'll try to manage it as best as I can to the point where I'm comfortable of my training. But we do want patients to have resources in the event that they go to the hospital because it's something I can't handle. Accidents happen, or if they need to see a specialist. So we have actually a list of specialists locally who can offer cash rates to our patients. So we've tried to find where we can get the best, cheapest x-rays or ultrasounds, and we've got the cheapest labs pre-negotiated for like dollars. But if someone still has insurance, of course they can use it. And people who don't have insurance, there's actually a lot of changes that have happened recently with the laws. So there's alternative options. So there's health share plans where someone can get a coverage for their family, sometimes for like $200, $250. And it works kind of like insurance where the patient would pay, but they, again, would file to get reimbursed. So there are other options. So when a patient needs to see a specialist, in this case, she actually was part of a health share. So she knew she had to pay up front for the office visit, but she was reimbursed for it afterwards as if she had insurance.
Well, I grin when somebody says, well, I have Medicare and it doesn't cost me anything. Well, let me tell you something. We've got a Part B, which may run a chunk of money. Okay. We have Part D, which is medicines, which we're paying for. Besides, before you got this prescription, you're paying for a membership. You're paying for a membership on the Medicare Part B program. So it's not free. And you have to choose.
You paid into it your whole life as well.
Right. I hear people saying, well, I have a Medicare Advantage program. It's like buying a car. Do you want leather seats? Do you want convertible? Well, that's true. They have different plans, but so does Medicare.
Right. We get a lot of flack in the DPC sometimes because it says, naysayers will say that we're cherry picking patients. And I would disagree. We've had patients with coming in with bulks of records. They've seen 13 different doctors, and they're coming to me because they want someone just to take a step back, review all of their records, and just try to help them navigate and take over and just reduce some of that burden on them, right? So that's a value that we could provide someone who is, and I'll say actually the majority of my patients are a little more complicated, but because I'm taking the time to actually address their issues and get into it. I would say actually half of our patients actually have insurance, and they're using this as a supplemental value that they're getting out of it. And half of our patients are uninsured. And why are they uninsured? Well, think about everyone who is like self-employed, 1099s. Maybe their employers don't offer healthcare benefits. There are a lot of people who don't fit the criteria to get Medicaid subsidies. They're not of Medicare age. So there's a lot of people in that middle gap who don't have any care at all, and they're not getting health care met. So this is, again, a very, very affordable option for patients to get good quality care who may otherwise just use the urgent care or an emergency room when they need to.
Right. And then you can't predict, and I'm a classic example of this, you can't predict how long this treatment's going to last. For instance, I had open heart surgery years ago.
Sure. Okay.
And I was told, well, the surgery is 5 hours. And my wife and son were at the hospital at 7 a.m, waiting till around noon or so to get my results. Well, at 7 p.m., the doctor came into the waiting room where the nurses had brought in blankets and pillows for them. And my wife said to the doctor, how is he? And his face was ashen. He'd been standing there for over 12 hours. And he said, well, we won't know until he wakes up because he probably stroked. And she said, why? He said, well, it was on the heart-lung machine for 5 hours, I think. And said normally after 3 hours, the chances of a cerebral vascular accident increase greatly. Now, that is not in the normal flow of protocol. Well, fortunately,
terrifying.
When I woke up, I mumbled through the tube some answers that apparently were satisfactory for them. But every time I go through a procedure, it doesn't seem to be typically normal. And, can you imagine standing there for 12 hours? They put in a mitral valve, which was leaking. They had to replace it. And as he went to take the old one out, my heart slipped underneath my chest. And they had to put a set of hands in there to rotate it for him to do that 2-hour procedure again. I mean, it was...
So imagine also your family sitting in the waiting room, not knowing what's happening to you or not understanding. And then when you finally get out of there, whether you're woozy from your anesthesia or not, but you've got 5 minutes with the physician that walks in at a random time and he's blurting out what happened and you leave and you're like, what just happened? What's my game plan? I'm not sure. That's another value that direct primary care physicians can offer because we are your patient advocate. And I will tell you, when you go to the hospital, there's nothing better than having someone just take a look at your chart, making sure you're saying, hey, maybe you need to ask this question of the nurse when she comes back in. Oh, I had a patient hospitalized not too long ago, and he wasn't sure what the game plan was for the day. So I looked in the chart. I said, oh, it looks like you've got these tests planned, and oh, you're going to be discharged at this time, and oh, I see that they put the wrong medicine on there. Make sure you're telling them what you really do take at home. So having someone like that, that's another value that we add, is that we are patient advocates. We can access hospital records. We can help guide be translators. A lot of time patients are going to specialists and they come back and I say, hey, what happened at your appointment? And they're like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah, right.
We'll get records. I've gone to visits with patients who are particularly complicated that I want to make sure the questions get asked of the specialist. I've gone with my patients to their specialist visits if I didn't have anything else going on in my clinic that day. So that's what I'm talking about is the degree of care. Basically, we are bringing back medicine the way it used to be. You know, people used to remember that when they were sick, a doctor would come visit them. I don't necessarily want you coming to my office if you're sick. I don't want to contaminate my area. And if you're so sick and feeling unwell, I also don't want you to put off healthcare because you don't feel well enough to travel. Let me just come to you if it's really that bad.
I remember those days so clearly with the black bag that the doctor would come into my bedroom with my chicken pox, my what else? Chicken pox, mumps, measles. And, it was constantly coming into the home and with somebody you recognized and somebody was there to help you. And when you go to a hospital these days, your primary doesn't come to visit you, is not involved at all, which I think is...
We can't. I've been there and there's no way I could have gone. I was at some point at my last clinic. It was a high needs clinic. And I would say at any moment I had 8 patients in the hospital, but then I also had a full day of patients in my clinic. At what point am I supposed to make it over there to do all that work? And then also don't forget, we are people too with family lives. And that's what I found was the most challenging is in these big healthcare systems where we are, again, indebted to the insurance companies and we have to follow their guidelines for documentation, which is sometimes so unnecessary. Just a quick phone call. I don't need to document everything to the standards in order so I can get reimbursed. But it just took away to the point where I felt like I didn't really have much say in what I wanted to do for patients, nor what I wanted to do for my personal life and make adjustments. So that's why I really opened up my clinic, and we are seeing patients, and it's just myself and my medical assistant, and we know the patients, we know their personal stories. It's fun. It's fun to get to know the person and what drives them, because a lot of times you get to some extra information about their family life that plays into their health as well. So that's another thing, is that our membership, we expect our patients to live with us. And I'm taking the effort to know them and know them personally, because this is my forever job. I found it, and I'm here to see it through the very end. So I think having a good, solid relationship is what makes this work.
That's exactly why I do what I do. I'm here to help my family, my friends, my community. And I want to do that on a one-to-one basis. I want to do it in a familiar setting. I don't want to deal with people I don't know. I want to deal with those that I do know and help them all I can. And you're a godsend to going. I'm sorry.
I think it's a little bit of a hyperbole, but sure, I'll take it.
No, in that I'm not saying that physicians don't care about their patients. They certainly do. They've taken an oath to be able to care. But when you're doing it in crowds, it's very difficult, as you explained, very difficult to do the thing the way you want it done. Whereas if you have the luxury, like with your program, to be able to follow through, to do visits with patients, to do telecommunications, all kinds of neat things that you're working with them as a team, they're looking at you as a familiar person who's going to make me better, who's going to help me. And that's
it's like having a family it's like having a doctor in the family is our logo motto.
And it's a rare thing these days that you can deal in your life with people like that.
What we are seeing, and I think COVID is just going to increase this exponentially, is that this is a nationwide model of healthcare that is catching fire. I think I was reading something like, 1,000 doctors a month are leaving healthcare systems. They're retiring early. We're getting burnt out with the way that the system is. This is not what we went to medical school for. And so people are coming out of retirement. They're transitioning over. Honestly, being a doctor is hard work. And we need to really emphasize that, because a lot of people don't see that perspective. But this is the profession actually with the highest rate of suicide. We don't have a physicians union. So this is sometimes really, again, a problem with the healthcare system and the autonomy and doing the right thing for both patients and physicians. I think we're going to see a greater increase of direct primary care, especially when it comes to primary care. But also there's a lot of specialists, even in Florida, who are now converting to this model where they are just having just cash payments or membership-based styles, even for endocrinologists, surgeons, the emergency care. This is the model in the future, because it's just gotten too much. And it's in healthcare, as we know it, insurance is not access, and sometimes it can be a little bit inhibiting as well.
Yeah, definitely. And then again, the shame of is I when I went through the surgery, the open heart surgery anyway, I learned a lot about reimbursements, learned a lot about what was accepted or not. I would get an EOB, explanation of benefits. Right. It would show the hospital cost, like $100,000.
Phenomenal. It's phenomenal. And it's a little bit of a scam, and it's a markup, and it's inflation. Let me give you an example. And I think this is a great example I love to give. So at our clinic, I've kind of already explained how we find the specialists to refer to because I'm interested in your financial health as well. And I'm partially responsible for that, right? So we also offer a pharmacy, so patients can get their medications from us as well. And what we were finding is that our cost of medication, as long as it's like a generic medication, for example, is like 80-90% less than what you'd get at retail pharmacies. Wow. And actually, I found some that were even like 600% less than what you'd get at retail pharmacies. And we're talking, you can even get like chemotherapy medicines that are like $5,000 a month. We might be able to get to you for like $800 a month.
Well,
but even like the simple stuff, like let's give examples of simple stuff, like Celebrex, for example. Celebrex is used as an anti-inflammatory medicine. And what we do is we compare to GoodRx. All of our medicines, if we find that GoodRx, you could get it cheaper somewhere else at another pharmacy, we will send it there. Of course, sometimes it's just a convenience. If I can send you an antibiotic for $2 here versus sending it to a pharmacy where you can get it for free, you might just pay that convenience fee and just get your antibiotic while you're here, right?
Right.
So let's go back to that Celebrex. So if I sold you a 30-day supply of the Celebrex, it was coming from the pharmacy, it could be $218. That's the national retail average. GoodRx has a coupon for you for $79. That's quite a savings. I can sell you the same prescription for $10.
I just recently paid $22, by the way.
Exactly.
For
So
Celebrex.
we have some patients that are sending us their medicine list, and they're saying, how much would it cost to get it from you? And you know what? Turns out they just paid for their membership with me.
Yep. Right. Well, I'm paying over $200 a month for my Part B coverage, out of hospital visits, outpatient services.
Yeah. And actually, the same thing goes with laboratory work as well. So we've contracted with the laboratory to get the cheapest cash rates. And so, for example, and this may have you may not know what I'm talking about, but healthcare people will, that if I order a lab panel and it includes a CBC, a CMP, a lipid cholesterol panel, a thyroid panel, and an A1C checking for diabetes, that can go to insurance for a cost of about $270 or more. It probably is on the or more side. Mm-hmm. But I can say, hey, if you want to process it through insurance, again, fine. But I'll tell you what, so far every patient that's processed through insurance and they had to copay, when we came back and we said, what would have it cost if you used our farm or our laboratory? That panel would be $17.
See, well, listen, Dr. McCain, Bart, we're going to take a break right now, and we'll be right back.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, we are back, and Doc, thank you for indulging us. We had to get in some commercials for some of our sponsors. Um, I, we have a problem. You and I have a problem. Do you know what that problem is?
No, tell me.
We don't have enough time.
I know.
Well, I'm sorry. You're just going to have to reschedule down the road and come back again to pick up some more
That's
stuff.
fine with me. There's just so much. I get so excited, and I can just, talk about keep going.
Yeah, but I would like to have the Jessica McCain show. So this is the best way to get information out to people out there. So why don't we give some information about your clinic right now, your program right now, and then we can go back to a couple of questions. Where are you?
Sure.
Where are you located for this program?
So this is Southern Comfort Health. It's a direct primary care clinic. We are located in Fort Pierce on South 7th Street, so close to the downtown area. Our phone number is 772-252-0140, and our email is support, SUPPORT, at SOCO, SOCO, health, HEALTH, and that's our website as well. That's SOCOHealthDPC.com.
Very good. And you have a clinic. What are the hours of the clinic, by the way?
So there is someone always in our office from 9 to 5, but again, we don't really have hours. Again, patients can reach me after hours if they feel like they have an urgent need or if they just want any additional information. I try to say let's keep business in between the 9 to 5, but we are also available by appointment as needed after hours.
Very good, very good. I want to make sure I have your phone number. I think I have it in my schedule here.
Sure. 772-252-0140 is our clinic number. Our patients, our members actually get a member-only cell phone number that rings to me directly as well.
Very good, very good. And plus, I know how to get you through Veronica as well.
Yes.
Is tomorrow the big day for her?
In what, for her move?
Yeah.
You know what? I haven't asked her. I don't know what her plans are.
What was a Friday? I don't know if it was last Friday or this Friday.
Yeah, she may have been moved in already. We had a big event scheduled on Sunday that we had to cancel.
I know.
So I'm not sure. What she's doing is she's setting me up with a lot of virtual stuff now.
Uh-huh. Very good. Well, and that's another way to go too. If you're talking about describing of processes or whatever, healthcare information. Again, one of the things we have a problem with in healthcare is we don't disseminate this information enough to patients. The government comes out with a program, the state comes out with a program. Yeah, we know about it, but how do we get that information to the people out there? It's a
challenge because not everyone has the same resources.
No, but most of them have the same questions.
Yeah.
We should just set up a program saying, ask Dr. McCain. And
I'll take it.
You phone in, and here's my question. Here's this question. This is that. Now you can do that through teleconferencing, but that's not quite the same. We want to be able to get this interaction going with people out there. Maybe that's what we should think about doing. Set up. We'll advertise it for a while, saying, on this certain date, bring your questions, phone in, this and that, and then we'll get some answers put together for you. We can.
Sounds fun.
Yeah. Well, it sounds to me like life is fun for you, even though it's stressful at times.
Well, you know what? I like breaking the mold. When someone says that this is what it is, but I just see when there's an issue that let's try to make it better. I always am an optimist. I always, when someone tells me I can't do it, I'll certainly just get even more motivated to find a workaround if it's for the best interest of myself or other people as well. So I just don't believe in living with a status quo if we can obviously see that there's a problem with it.
There's no greater feeling than somebody saying, you can't do that. And then to come back and say, okay, what's next? Because I already did that. Give me another one.
Right. It is.
It's kind of like the glass is always half full. There's always something out there that's a positive thing for us. We can, my wife and I joke about things. When she gets pessimistic, I'll say meteor. And she looks and shakes her head because I say, yeah, you can go outside and get hit by a meteor too. You know,
Right.
you have to draw the line somewhere where reality
Right.
is far-fetched and get off the negative. Because I think negativity and depression really slow up your life or shorten your life.
It certainly does. And I think there has to be a healthy amount of realism as well. And there has to be some degree of, accepting what I think there used to be an old proverb about changing the things you can and accepting the things you cannot, bending like a willow.
Yeah, well, that's the Alcoholics Creed. So I'm not an alcoholic, but I live by that creed. I want to know the things that I have to accept, the things that I can't change. I've
Right.
got the courage to change the things that I can and the wisdom to know the difference.
There you go. That's it.
And sometimes we run, I can't control my environment right now. I can't control what's happening with this virus and my restrictions placed on me in the normal job that I do and the normal mission that I'm on. I can't do anything about it. So I just accept it. I don't complain about it. I'm anticipatory about hopefully we can get back to some kind of, as Como says, not a normal, but a new normal. But it's time, I think, for us to get to a new normal. And I'm hoping that tomorrow or today, whenever our governor announces things, that we move on to one of these 3 levels and to get things going again. It was a big, big thing that he did by opening the beaches in Jacksonville. And he got heavily.
I know. I heard him on the news actually this morning. They were talking about those decisions. Of course, you're always going to have people. I think it's definitely right to have a degree of fear. It is anything that is unknown can be fearful.
But again, he was also praised by many people. We don't hear about the praise that these guys get. We hear about the criticisms because that's what gets people's attention in the media. It's the negativity, not the positivity. Not saving the little kitten who was up in a tree with the fire department. It's, the person killed 16 people in Canada. Those are the things that drive us with the negativity. And that's what we want.
It's actually kind of funny. So I think I wrote to PC Palm newspaper when I was like in 3rd grade because they put an article, January 2nd, the top 10 stories. And I noticed even as a young person, I was like, these are all really negative stories. How come we are not praising the fact that someone won the lotto or someone won this award or things like that? So I actually wrote the editor and I, as a 3rd grader, I wrote the editor. I said, you should really consider your content and start, emphasizing the more positive things that happened. And I think his response was, well, this is the way the world is. I was like, that's not right to tell a 3rd-year-old that, 3rd grader that.
Right. Well, I ran a treatment program up north. Actually, it was a fluency clinic, a stuttering clinic. It was a live-in 5-week program at the university. And we had finally we got all 3 stations, ABC, NBC, and CBS would come down and cover us the first day and listen to these people talk. And then we would take them up to the studio the last day. And it was like a miraculous change. And I remember we were waiting for a truck to come by to cover, and they couldn't because there was an accident somewhere, and it was a bad one, so they had to get over there and cover that to be on the news. Well, what we had was something important too. It took us several years to convince them, and then finally they started approaching us when they realized there was value and worth in what we were doing, and they wanted to cover it for their media. And those are the kinds of things we need to have happen. The positiveness, what's happening. What about the guys done 50,000 meals so far?
There are some amazing people out there. And anytime someone thinks that they can't, I always was envisioning at some point, in my lobby, I can have videos of these success stories. There's one that I share every year when it comes up, and it's this gentleman who was born without arms, but he is now a engineer for NASCAR. and you would not consider him debilitated at all. He's proven everybody wrong. So I love hearing those success stories.
Well, I have to admit, I had tears in my eyes on Saturday.
What happened Saturday?
Well, there was a caravan of cars that went around the hospital, and I was in that caravan.
I saw the video. I saw the video. It was beautiful.
Driving around and seeing the staff coming out of the doors, looking at us, tooting the horns, waving. I had to wipe my eyes. I mean, it was such a moving thing that car after car after car after car drove around and said thank you. And I understand the week before it had been done at St. Lucie Hospital. I didn't know about that one. I'd have been up there also. We just have to thank these wonderful, dedicated people who are physicians and, medical personnel who are doing phenomenal work in helping people.
We need to be thanking even the janitors who are cleaning up all these messes and everybody. I mean, the hospital does not operate with just physicians, and there is a need for administrators as well. I mean, I don't want to say I bash them, but I mean, it's just not the kind of practice I have to be administrative heavy here, but certainly at the degree of a hospital, that's a lot of coordination that has to happen.
Well, you were there. You knew what was happening. I did an internship for 6 months at the VA hospital in Louisville, Kentucky, as part of my master's program at Indiana University. And I lived at the hospital. And boy, did that open my eyes to see what the dedicated staff was doing. And that was a teaching hospital, by the way.
Right.
And I learned we had Friday morning morgue sessions where they did brain slicing. So when we were looking at communication and dementia and Alzheimer's, we were looking at sites of the brain that were damaged from that patient who just passed away. I mean, we were really into it. We were doing brain scanning in a very crude system at that time also, many years ago. And, it's such an exciting thing. And people just don't understand the dimensions of a hospital and the service that physicians have. If you took a person who complains about Medicare and medical services and had them shadow you for a morning, I wonder what that would do to them in terms of their viewpoint of medicine and viewpoint of help.
Right.
It's, to me, knowledge takes the fear away in anything. I got this pain. I don't know what to do. Is this, cancer? Am I dying? What's happening? And the doctor says, well, you just have to take this for the gas that you have in your stomach. Oh, okay. Once you know what it is, all the fear goes away. Even in serious medical conditions, the more you know about that situation, the less likely you are to get depressed. And I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here because that's what you do for a living.
Of course, we need to always have realistic expectations, but expectations to be given, period, are definitely helpful.
Well, you let me know what I can do to help you anytime, anywhere, anyhow, because I heavily believe in what you're doing, and I want more people to use your services. I want more people to realize what's going on, because it's something we need to get the information out. And that's a very difficult thing. You can buy an ad in the newspaper, put something in a magazine. That doesn't cut it.
Not when it's a grassroots type of endeavor. It doesn't really work. It has to be explained.
Exactly. And you do a pretty good job of explaining, by the way, young lady.
I try, but it's definitely hard to kind of get it. You have the spot of a newspaper that you still have to fill in.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But again, there are other venues. There are other venues that you are exploring, which is a very positive thing. You're a new business. You need to get more people to be realistic about the fact that you can help them sometimes better than other systems can help them. Anyway, we're looking like we're about done. Dr. McCain, thank you very much for being on the air, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you so much for hosting.
Okay, we'll see you soon on the forum.